and their text is found in Matthew chapter 11. Matthew chapter 11. We just do quickly before the young people's program. All right, Matthew chapter 11. Let me have a look. Matthew chapter 11 verses 28 and 29. Okay, it says, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." That rest, it says, that's Sabbath. So if you come to me, if you come to Jesus, no need of the seventh-day Sabbath, because Jesus is my Sabbath. If I am with Jesus, I'm at peace. I have my Sabbath. Did you hear that? No. You never heard that one? You never heard that argument? That's their common argument. It is replaced. It says so. This is their text. Matthew 11, 28, 29. "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you Sabbath." Rest. Yeah, this is the word Sabbath. Rest. "Take my yoke upon you, and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." All right, so no more Sabbath. Jesus is my Sabbath. How are you going to do it? How would you deal with this kind of sentiment? How are you going to deal with this? Now, in the next maybe few Sabbaths, we will be talking about law and grace as well. But we will start from this one. Sabbath. What is Sabbath in the Bible, by the way? What is the Bible Sabbath? What is Sabbath according to the Bible? What is Sabbath according to the Bible? To cease from work, rest day, to cease from work. But you're not working on Sabbath, huh? So let's have a look at the Sabbath. Let's start with Genesis chapter 2. Let's start with Genesis chapter 2 verses 1 to 3. Can we put in the, just if you have please, Genesis chapter 2 1 to 3. Sabbath. Again, we discussed this before, that the Sabbath in Genesis chapter 2 verses 1 to 1 3, there was no evening, there was no morning, because evening and morning is indicating that God will make another creation the following day. All right, so on the first day, there was evening and there was morning the first day. Because the next day, He will do another creation. So God's creative power indicates when there is evening and morning, that means that following day I will work again. But here on chapter 2 of Genesis, especially on verse 3, but the seventh day, so there is no more evening and morning. It should be evening and morning and the seventh day. It should be, if it would be a correct pattern of the 6 days of creation. Are you with me? The pattern of the 6 days of creation is that, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And there was evening and there was morning for the first day. If I were God, on the seventh day, I would do like this. And God said, "I will bless the seventh day, I will make it holy, I will rest from my work," and there was evening and there was morning, seventh day. That would be the pattern of the 6 days of creation. Maybe you're not with me. You eat too much lunch. Please, lunchtime on divine service, don't eat too much. On lunchtime on Sabbath, please control your appetite. Just eat a little bit. You can eat plenty at home from Sunday to Friday. You can eat the whole bucket of rice. I don't really care. But please on Sabbath, just eat very little. Because I know some of us, we eat like no tomorrow. It's like we come out from a starvation camp. All right? Just, just take it easy and relax. Make yourself available on Sabbath. Make yourself available with God on Sabbath. Otherwise, we'll be sitting there in the chair and you're there like this to me. Yeah. I think next Sabbath, Brother Belford, we're going to make some thing that hold their heads from doing like this, huh? Well, I will prepare. I will prepare next Sabbath. You see, the 6 days pattern is, and God said, and there was morning, and there was evening, and there was morning, first day. But on the 7th day, you can never see that pattern. Different. It's different. God begins on this way. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished. That's how this 7th day begins. So on the Sabbath day, you and me, who are followers of Christ, you and me, God's people, God's faithful people, we should begin the Sabbath by saying, all were finished. Done all your shopping, done all your washing, done everything, whatever you can, everything were finished. So the pattern of the 7th day is not the same as the other 6 days. So let's go to Exodus chapter 20. Because they are not the same. The 6 days has a different pattern. The 7th is totally different from all the rest of the 6. So Exodus chapter 20 in verses 8, 9, 10, and 11. All right, let's remember this one. Cover your eyes, don't read it. Let's memorize it. Remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. 6 days, thou shalt do all thy labor and do all thy work. But on the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work. Thou, means you, nor thy sons, nor thy daughters, nor the manservant, nor the maidservant, nor thy oxen or cattle, nor the strangers that are within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, and rested the 7th day. And so then you have the 6 days and the 1 day. It is the summary of creation. So exactly the same, the 4th commandment is the same as the creation. 6 days of evening and morning, but the 7th, there was none. There was no evening and morning. An indication that this day is a time, but not chronos, not chronological. But this day is a Sabbath which is not a chronological, but is a season. Like a time to live, a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to uproot. You know, it's a season like your birthday. Like spring, it's one off. So Sabbath in the whole week is not patterned according to the sequence of the day. It must be different from the sixth. You cannot make the seventh the same as the sixth, as the 6 days. You cannot. God does not allow that. God did not give us that authority to do it. No authority from the Bible that we will treat the 6 days the same as the seventh, and the seventh we treat us as the sixth. So please, when the sun set on Friday, we must treat the seventh day not the same as the 6 days. I know you watch Facebook, I know you on TikTok. Even my kids, I keep telling them, use the technology as in your advantage. Please, no more eBay shopping on Sabbath. Please, don't do it. Don't do it. I know you're on Facebook on Sabbath, but try to do Facebook texting about biblical verse. Please. You know why? We are getting into crisis. Just before the second coming of Jesus, if we are unprepared, it's just sad that I heard too many of us saying that the pandemic in 2020, we are unprepared. I heard many of us that we are so unprepared. We did not expect that it will happen in 2020, the pandemic. It's sad. It shouldn't be uttered with a Seventh Adventist lips. It should not be coming from our mouth. It's embarrassing. It's shameful. We should be prepared at all times. So, when we treat the 6 days different from the seventh day, and the seventh day is different from the sixth, then you can say, I would rather obey God than man. But if you cannot make the 6 days different from the seventh day, then everything is just the same. You will not know what is holy and what is not holy. You will not know that this is evil and this is good. What your mind would say, there is nothing wrong with it. That would be your position. When you're in the position of there's nothing wrong with it, that means holy and unholy is just the same. Sad. That should not be the case. All right, so we'll finish with Exodus. Now, let's go with the subject of 6th and 7th. So, 6 days, you do all your work, but on the 7th is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. Which one is work? Which one is rest? Now he's laughing. This is a continuous subject that we have. It's unfinished business. Now, which one is work? Which one is rest? 7 is rest. 6 days all work. You don't work on Sabbath. Huh? We work on Sabbath. The priests only, the pastors work on Sabbath. Only the priests. The priests allowed to work on Sabbath. The Levites in the sanctuary, they work on Sabbath. But the non-Levites, no. They are resting. Do you know how? Tell me, what is work, what is rest? What is work and what is rest? Let's do first what is work. Yeah, earning money. Yeah? Toothbrushing? Is that work? Yeah? Hygiene is exempted? What about driving? Is that work or not work? Work on the 6 days, rest on the 7th. What you do on the 6th, do not do on the 7th. That's what I said, driving. What is work? What is work? Did Jesus say that if the sheep is on the well, you're very Pharisaism, you're justifying yourself. You are trying to justify yourself. Okay, all right, I forgive you. I don't know with God. I don't know with God. Do good on the Sabbath. But the Bible says, do everything, do all your work. Not do some, but do all. You're in trouble now. So you brush your teeth only until Friday. Sabbath, no. Because do all your work on the 7th, don't do it. I brush my teeth once a month. So you can smell from a distance, even though in the front door, you can smell around this, yeah. Yeah, some of my staff, they say, man, I don't change for the whole week. I wear the same clothes every day from Monday to Friday. One day, Joyce told me, oh, you have not changed. I said, I know, I'm the same. I'm still Randy. All right, what is work? What is work? Give me a hand. What is work? Huh? Yeah, what does it say? It says activity involving mental or physical effort done in order to achieve a purpose or result. Number 2, a task or task to be undertaken. So, and then the third person present said be engaged in physical or mental activity in order to achieve a result. So that's work. So don't engage in a mental or any physical activity. We're doing a mental activity now. We're thinking it's work. You should stop. No, that's a problem now. All right. In the Bible, God said, 6 days, do all your work. We had a problem in our Sabbath mathematical calculations. This is our problem because we are affected by the mathematical calculations. To some people, rest means sitting doing that. Yeah. you know. So, so work, our calculations would be distance plus time. That's how we calculate work. Anything with a distance, anything with a plus time equals work. Isn't it? Is that a mathematical formula of work? Distance plus time equals work. That's work. So when there is a distance, if you make a step from your bedroom to the kitchen, that's work. Because it involves distance and it involves time. Rest means you're in a box. No move, you're in the box. Rest. Sleeping. Rest. Okay? Kaput. Okay? That's why when we look at the Sabbath in a mathematical calculations, we're trying to justify it by using other verses in the Bible to justify our movement. For example, if I work as a nurse, I work in the hospital, we try to justify that I'm doing good works. Maybe that's a different story, but yeah. Probably. But that it depends. So it's a case-to-case basis, but yeah. So exactly like myself, I'm here on Sabbath, but my business is making an income because I can't stop. I cannot stop because the people there are waiting for service. What? Yeah, we're still making an income. So, what is then the seventh day that you have to work, and then on the seventh day you have to rest as God did? So in God's point of view, in the Bible's point of view, the work that God rested is the work of creation. And then God said, I have given you dominion. Yeah, Genesis 1. God gave us the power for procreation. Yeah? Procreation. Because the Sabbath in Genesis 2 and Exodus 20 is a law based on creation, and God has given it to us as a procreator. We created after God's providence. So God gave us that power to accumulate, as a dominion, to take control, dominion, power, and to multiply. Not only making babies, but to multiply our territories, to enlarge, to make things. So in the Sabbath, God wants you to stop doing that procreation, because on the Sabbath is a rest that you can rest with God on the seventh day. But on the seventh day, the question is, did God really stop working on Sabbath? He didn't. He didn't stop. Yeah? He didn't stop working because He controls the nature. Exactly. The sustaining power of God is still there. It's working to make the system that He created functional. Now, you can heal also on Monday. You can also... Yeah, but the healing is not... Also, Jesus had healings not only on Sabbath, but only the Bible records on Sabbath. Because the healing on Sabbath, there is a message on that. Why He heals that on Sabbath? For example, because He's also healing in Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday. Jesus is a 7 days healer. He heals every day of the week. But when the Bible records healing on the Sabbath, because the story on it behind, there is something, a message that He likes to tell you. He likes to tell me. That's why context is important. So when you do inductive study, important is the context of the healing. Okay, so now, let's move to the subject. All right, 5 more minutes. Let me 5 more minutes. And so in Matthew 11, the subject of Sabbath keeping on what is work and what is rest is so heavy in the economy of the Jewish people. It's so heavy that they are being overtaxed, overloaded. And even with the mints, even with the, you see the argument, and the argument between the Pharisees and the Sadducees about the Sabbath keeping, it's so heavy because they miss the point. The point is like this. The Sabbath that was set aside for human being, for you and me, is to stop the mindset and the physical body of procreation, but to sit down with Him. And nothing else that bothers. You can't be bothered if whatever happens on the Sabbath, because you like to spend the Sabbath with God. Now, it is interesting that in creation, the first Sabbath is not only Adam was on it. It was Adam and Eve. That means Sabbath is a social in its nature. The heavenly family and the earthly family together on this day, because the earthly family is the extension of the heavenly family. On the seventh day, when we ceased from our work as a procreator, we can appreciate God's divine power. That God had created this. If Sabbath is not a delight, if Sabbath is not a pleasure to you that you are with God, then you have to re-examine your Sabbath concept. If Sabbath is not a delight, if Sabbath is a burden, if Sabbath is not a delight, Sabbath is like an annoying, or really not having a rest with God, then maybe that Sabbath, you had to reassess and redo things. Jesus said, this is where the subject comes in, Matthew 11:28. Come unto me. Come unto me. The same invitation in the Garden of Eden. That Sabbath in the Garden of Eden is come unto me, and I will give you rest. So when we experience Sabbath, when Sabbath is an experiential day with Jesus, then you have a complete Sabbath rest. In the absence of God or Jesus on the Sabbath, your Sabbath is not a Sabbath. It's just a ritual. It's just like, when you're driving, you're so familiar, you always drive that road, and without even thinking, you just get in there. It becomes a habit. It becomes a habit. So, I'm supposed to begin why I'm here, because that's your normal road that you take all the time. It becomes an assumption. You assume that road said away. It's the same as the Sabbath. You wake up in the morning, you change. But then actually, it's just a ritual. Because I was born into this church. I was born into Sabbath. So this is the things that we must change. Come unto me, and I will give you rest. That's the principle of the Sabbath. The principle of the Sabbath is that you and your Jesus will rest from all the work that is done on the 6 days, and on the 7th, you rest from all of those. Now, I know that we work on Sabbath. For example, nurses and doctors, they work on Sabbath because there are patients to be looked after. There's human being to be looked after. God never condemns that kind of exercise. Jesus never condemns that exercise. It is still unacceptable to humanity. And especially if you tell that person that Jesus loves you. It's an evangelism. It's part of telling them of the love of God. All right? So if you're a mechanic and you want to work on Sabbath, study nursing. So you can learn. Or be a doctor. All right, any question? Any information? Yeah. So, yeah. So, what's the difference between cooking and brushing? Yeah, what's the difference between cooking, brushing, driving? Huh? You can brush it. You can brush it on Friday. Hey, listen. Every ing, all right? Every ing. Cooking, brushing, driving, walking, spitting, breathing, yeah. Everything that has an ing, according to the verb, it's an action word, isn't it? It's a word. Maybe we don't go to that very extreme. I think, I agree with you. But everything is work. Yeah. Don't go fishing on Sabbath. Yeah. So between work and rests, the rests in our mathematical capacity, rest means no distance or no time. So rest is no distance if there's distance but no time. So that means rest is dead. Work is W equals D plus T. The D is distance, T is time. Rest is D minus T. Look at the mathematical calculations of work and rest. But the Bible did not give us that mathematical capacity. That's how we interpret our Sabbath. We use the mathematical calculations. Yes? So when you work on Sabbath, not on a mathematical calculations, recognizing that come unto me that are heavy laden and I will give you rest. That principle on Sabbath day, because even on Sabbath, the Father is working in sustaining this life, in sustaining our planet. And His work on Sabbath day with Jesus is a work of redemption. So the 6 days is a work of creation. The 7th day is a work for redemption. But after sin, God works every day so that human being will be saved. Just like all of us, we work every day of the week. Soul saving and also for ourselves. But most of all, on the Sabbath day, we spend these Sabbath hours sacred and holy, because it's not only rest and work, but also it is blessed, hallowed, and sanctified. There are also other additional blessings that God set aside for the Sabbath. So therefore, the argument of Jesus is my Sabbath, it does not replace the 7th day of the week. It does not replace the 7th day Sabbath. The 7th day Sabbath still is, but then we rest with Jesus. But they have to be also on a Sabbath. Now that's the wrong. That's the evangelical side. So what the Bible say is that the 7th day Sabbath still remains, and it would be more blessed if we have Jesus with us on Sabbath day. You can't separate the two. Jesus and the Sabbath. You cannot separate the two. You cannot say, I have only Jesus and I don't need the 7-day Sabbath. Still not correct. Also, you cannot keep the 7-day Sabbath without Jesus. So when we share the 10 Commandments, don't forget to share Jesus too. You tell about the Sabbath and the 10 Commandments, and say, because Jesus loves you. That's why He gives that to you. That is saved by grace, not a disgrace. Because if you only kept one without the other, it's a disgrace. Yeah? Must both. Keeping the 7th day Sabbath and Jesus. But the 7th day Sabbath is not a Sabbath without Jesus. Do not keep the Sabbath without Jesus. You're still lost. Because then you are replacing the Sabbath as your Savior. You can't replace Jesus. No replacement. You can't separate them. You cannot separate them. You have Jesus and the Sabbath. And the Sabbath is only meaningful spiritually when there is Jesus with you. Any other? The kids are ready now. Any other? So 6 days and 7th day and the 7th day, we will pray. We will pray that our Sabbath and our 6 days of work will be a blessing, so that when we come together on the Sabbath day is hallowed, blessed, and set aside, and we had a delight. We are more happy. Remember back home we sing the Welcome Delightful Morn? Welcome Delightful Morn. I think Delightful Morning something. It's a delight, yeah. It's a delight. A delightful morning. Sabbath is a delight. Okay. We'll give our time to the kids. Yeah, okay. Thank you, because it's getting late. Sorry. 2:30.
Lesson 11. Hello, boys and Lesson 11. Lesson 11. Hello, boys and girls. This is Aunt Fernita, and I have a wonderful story for you called Poison in the Pot. Today's memory verse is from 2 Samuel chapter 9, verse 7. It says, "For I will surely show you kindness." The message for today's story is God helps us see and supply others' needs. Do you ever complain about what's for supper? I hope not. But I think if you were a student at the school Elisha visited, you actually might have a good reason to complain about the stew. The students at Gilgal School of Prophets were excited. Elisha was coming to visit. Good things always happened when the prophet came. Elisha always had time to listen to them. He gave them good counsel and encouraged them in their studies. Yes, the prophet was coming and the students were excited, but they actually thought about something more than their studies. Would Elisha hear their stomachs growling? What? Stomachs growling? Yes, another drought in the land meant no rain, which meant little food growing, and that meant stomachs were growling with hunger. Everyone greeted Elisha excitedly. It was easy to see that the students looked forward to his visit. Elisha smiled as he listened to their chatter. But he also noticed that the students looked a bit thin and a little pale. They haven't had much food to eat, Elisha thought. He knew they needed food so they could think clearly. Elisha called to his servant, "Bring a big pot and make some stew for the students." The servant went into the field near their school. He found some things growing on a vine. He wasn't quite sure, but he thought they would do. Elisha's servant boiled some water in the big pot, and he cut up the things he had found and added them to the water, threw in a little herbs, and let them cook and simmer. The smell drifted to the students. Now their stomachs were really growling. They didn't know what the servant had put into the stew, but it smelled wonderful. They hurried to wash their hands and to get their bowls, and soon they gathered around the big pot. They held their bowls eagerly waiting to be served. They gulped down the first bites, but something was wrong. "Stop!" they shouted. "There's poison in the pot." The servant was shocked. "Poison?" The plants must have been bad. "Oh no, what have I done?" he worried. But God was watching, and he told Elisha what to do. "Bring me some flour," Elisha insisted. His servant hurried away and soon returned with a sack of flour. Quickly, Elisha added the flour to the pot and stirred it. He tasted the stew and then told his servant to offer it to the students again. The servant must have hesitated. The students probably hesitated too. Does flour normally take away poison? No, but they trusted God, and they trusted God's servant Elisha. The stew tasted delicious. They eagerly emptied their bowls. Elisha realized the students' need of food, and he did what he could. With God's help, he cared for the students. And God will take care of you too. Just ask him every day.
This podcast was brought to you by Studio El Piso and Gracelink.net. For more children's resources, please visit Gracelink.net.
All right, kids. Did you hear the story? Did you hear the story? And what was the story about? What did you learn from the story? All right, I'll make it easy for you. So, what was the prophet of the Lord who was there? What was his name? Elisha. Wow. And what happened to the students? What happened to them?
They were very hungry.
They were hungry. How many of us always get hungry? When you get hungry, what do you do? What do you do? You go to mommy and daddy and ask for food, right? That's what we do. And so when these kids were hungry, what did they do? Yes, Maggie?
We asked our mom and dad to go to a restaurant such as...
Okay. All right. I know the list is long, you can't finish. So what can we learn from the story? Because they were hungry and there's something strange that happened. What was in their food at first?
Poison.
Poison, yeah, which is so unfortunate. You know, when we go and ask food from dad and mom and they give you food, do you ask where has it come from, or you just eat? What do you normally do? You just eat, right? You don't worry where it has come from because you believe that your parents have given you the food that is okay. So these kids just went ahead and they were almost, but they realized that that food had poison. But what happened here is Elisha speaks to God and asks God, what can I do? And God provides. So the lesson that we can draw from this story, what do you think is the lesson that we can learn from this story? Joseph, what's the lesson that we can learn from this story? Does God provide when we're in trouble? Yes?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so whenever we're in trouble, God will always be there for us and He will always provide and we will never go hungry, okay? All right, may God bless you. It's hard to teach the kids, but yeah.
All those pieces broken and scattered, and mercy gathered and didn't hold. Empty-handed but not forsaken, I've been set free, I've been set free. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved I can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the bride.